Hey everybody, my name's JD. I am the Old Fat Marine, and you're watching the Old Fat Marine with Guns. All right, ladies and gentlemen, today I'm going to be talking about the conditions of a firearm. So, when I was younger, my dad taught us the conditions of a firearm. Growing up, I thought it was like basic knowledge. Everybody in the shooting community, everybody who owned guns knew what the conditions of a firearm were. Um, when I was in the Marine Corps, they pressed the conditions of a firearm and we had to memorize them. Not that they're that hard to memorize, but we had to memorize them. So growing up and when I was in the Marine Corps, I thought this is just basic stuff that everybody knows. Until I started looking at shooting forums after I got out of the Marine Corps, and I saw a bunch of people that absolutely have no idea what the conditions of a firearm are. Now, a little bit of background on the conditions of a firearm. So the conditions of a firearm were created. Sorry, my cat wants to be part of our videos. The conditions of a firearm were created so that everybody in the shooting community has common nomenclature, common terms that they use when they're talking about the state of the firearm. This was done to streamline so people can understand. If you say ceasefire condition 4, everybody should know ceasefire means stop shooting. Condition 4, everybody should know and understand at a fundamental level what condition 4 is. So these rules were created with that intent in mind. So everyone's working on the same page. Everyone's talking the same language, so to speak, when it comes to the conditions of a firearm. But I found that a lot of people in the shooting community have absolutely no idea what the conditions of a firearm are, what they mean, and if they're at the range and your RSO or range safety officer says cease fire condition 3 or condition 4, they absolutely don't know what to do. Stuff like this can get you kicked off a range, depending on the RSO that's there. But I have seen people booted out of a range because RSO says ceasefire condition 4, and people will take the gun that they're shooting and simply set it down instead of making sure that it's actually condition 4. So we're going to go through all of the conditions, and condition 4 is the absolute safest, and then it goes 3, 2, 1, 0. 0. 0 is something that's been added or that's newer. It was added on after the rest of it. Condition 0 is something that was added later. It was added on to the rest of the rules of firearm safety later on to indicate that your gun is actually like ready to fire. You're like actively engaging, ready to fire. So there are 5 conditions of a firearm: 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. The original conditions of a firearm were 4, 3, 2, 1. Again, 0 was added. Now, before I continue with that, we're going to go ahead and go to a word from our sponsors. Insert stupid video here. Anyway, right now it's time for a word from our sponsors, which I'm brand new, so I don't have any. Yeah, if anyone wants to sponsor me, reach out, please. I'm just kidding. I'm never going to get any sponsors. This is not a career for me. I have a real life career that I do, and I make decent money. This is for fun, unless if somebody wants to sponsor me and turn this into a career. Was that a good segue?
Yeah.
All right. So to start off, as you can see on the table, I have all of the firearms are clear, no magazines, no rounds in any of the firearms. Now, I do have magazines and rounds out on the table, and I'm only doing that to properly show the conditions of a firearm. Do not, under any circumstances, and I'm breaking my own rule here, do not, under any circumstances, load a firearm when you're doing a video like this or when you're cleaning. You typically want to keep all the rounds away from you using the guns, unless if you're actively shooting or unless if you're out at the range loading up to shoot, or if you have a daily carry or an everyday carry gun that you use. But typically what I'm doing right now is non-standard, and I just want to put like a warning out there, throw warning text right here. I want to throw a warning out that you should not be doing what I'm doing right now. The only reason I'm doing it is to properly show everybody the conditions of a firearm. All right, so we're going to go, so all of these are clear, and we're going to go ahead and go into condition 0. I need an empty mag for this part because I can't put the hammer forward on this gun without the magazine inserted. And it doesn't have a decock lever, which sucks. All right, sorry about that. So I'm going to go ahead and go to condition 4 on each of these firearms. And condition 4 on each of these is almost exactly the same, except, see, this has a decock. I like having a decock rather than having to put a darn magazine in. So all of these firearms, let me make sure, yes. All of these firearms are now in what's called condition 0. Condition 0 is no magazine in the magazine well, no round in the chamber, but the slide is forward. And if you have a manual safety, can you see the safety switch from your side? If you have a manual safety, your safety is turned on. If you do not have a manual safety, such as this, no magazine in the magazine well, no round in the chamber, the slide is forward, the hammer is forward, and this is condition 4 for this because this doesn't have a manual safety. This is condition 4 for this because this does have a manual safety. And why I have so many handguns out right now is because each of these is slightly different. You have 2 striker fired here. This does not have a manual safety. This does. I have 2 hammer fired here. This does not have a manual safety. This does. I have 2 revolvers here. Neither of them have a manual safety. But this Smith & Wesson 442 does not have an external hammer. This does have an external hammer. So I'm going to be able to show you, and then this is a internal hammer with a safety, with a manual safety, but the hammer is actually internal here. It's not striker fired like these. It doesn't have an external hammer like these. It has an internal hammer. So as I'm explaining the rules, I'm going to have to bounce between the different firearms on the table just to show the proper conditions. But right now, everything is condition 4, no magazine, no round in the chamber, manual safety on if there is a manual safety. And actually what I should have done, I know these are unloaded, so I'm going to go ahead and pull, and I need, where's my empty? This is another CA legal that trigger can't be pulled without the magazine in. So now that I have this done, if I pull the trigger on any of these without a manual safety, nothing's going to happen because the striker is actually hasn't been reset. So that's true condition 4 on the striker fired. I apologize for missing that step earlier. All right, so going from condition 4 to condition 3 is actually fairly simple. I'm going to go ahead and insert a magazine. Go ahead and insert a, I don't like where that's pointed. I'm going to rearrange just to make sure it's not pointed at my son who's behind the camera. Last thing we want to do is have an accidental discharge or negligent discharge and hurt somebody. Plus, it's part of the 4 rules of firearm safety. Never point a weapon at anything you do not intend to destroy. So I'm just, they weren't pointed at him. They were just in his direction. So I'm moving them enough that if they do have an accidental discharge, they're going into the wall. Which is a reinforced wall, by the way, just so anybody questioning me doing this in my house. I do have backstops and reinforced walls. All right, so I am in condition 3 now. As you notice, I didn't touch the revolvers. The revolvers don't go into condition 3 because there is not a magazine to load. So we can ignore these 2 for now. Every other firearm is in condition 3. Going from condition 4 to condition 3 is simply loading a magazine in the magazine well, leaving everything else the same, loading a magazine in the magazine well. Now we're going to go to condition 2. And condition 2, we can actually start here. So for condition 2 is having a magazine in the magazine well and a round in the chamber. On a revolver, it's actually having rounds in the cylinder. And if you'll notice this old school 22, we have to manipulate a little bit. Come on. We have to manipulate a little bit just to get to the cylinder reset. All right. Now, the one thing I don't like about this is to decock, you have to pull the trigger and ease the hammer up. I hate that on revolvers, but it is the way that it is with revolvers, especially these old school revolvers. Now, these are in condition 3. If I want to go to condition 2. If I want to go to condition 2 on any of these other ones, I'm going to go ahead and load a round in the chamber and put my manual safety back on any of the firearms that have a manual safety. Now for this, as you notice, I can't go to, I can't properly decock this without pulling the trigger. And since there's a round in the chamber, I'm going to make sure my safety is on. I'm going to ease it forward to make sure that I don't accidentally shoot myself. Saw a video of a guy accidentally do that to himself, sitting in a guard shack. He was wearing a security shirt, sitting in a guard shack, playing with his gun. He went to decock the hammer. He dropped the hammer. His thumb slipped on the hammer, and the round in the chamber went off, and he shot himself in the leg. So that, yeah, firearm safety, people. All right, to take this, I'm going to go ahead, load a round in the chamber. This has a decocking lever, so I'm going to go ahead and decock. Now you can see the hammer's forward. On this one, I am now loading around in the chamber. Striker fired, I can't decock the hammer. I can't decock the striker. There is one model of striker fired, I do believe, that has a striker decocker. However, I do not have that gun, and I only read about it. Oops. I only read about it, and I do not know much about the decocker for the striker. So I'll leave that out for now. All right. The next step, what condition are we in, Ash?
2.
Next step is going to condition 1. Condition 1, I can't go any further with this because I don't have an external hammer. I can't go any further than this because I don't have an external hammer. I can go into 1 on this by dropping the hammer. I can't go any further on this because I can't drop a hammer. Can't go any further on this because I can't drop a hammer. On this one, I can drop the hammer. And on this one, I can drop the hammer. So what condition am I in now?
Condition 1.
Condition 1. Now, what separates condition 0 from condition 1? Condition 0 is you're ready to fire. You can shoot, you can pull the trigger and the gun will shoot. This is ready to shoot. This, and this are all ready to shoot. So if you notice, these ones kind of skipped over condition 1 and went straight to 0 when I cocked the hammer. The key to going from condition 1 to condition 0 is taking your safety and putting it on fire, which I'm not going to do right here on this gun. My son is zooming in on it, waiting for me to go to condition 0. I just don't want to do that because I don't want to risk an accidental discharge. So this is condition 1. To go to condition 0, I would turn the manual safety off. This is already in condition 0 and it skipped condition 1. So I went from 2 to 1 when I dropped the hammer because I don't have an external safety on this. So these are the 5 conditions of a firearm, but 4, no magazine, no round in the chamber, manual safety on, hammer forward. 3, magazine in the chamber, hammer forward if there is a hammer, no round in the chamber, manual safety on. 2 is round in the magazine in the magazine well, round in the chamber, hammer forward or in the decock position, and manual safety on if there is manual safety. Condition 1 is magazine in the magazine well, round in the chamber. The hammer is back and the manual safety is on if you have manual safety. Condition 0 is magazine in the magazine well, round in the chamber. The hammer is drawn back and the manual safety is turned off. Now, I am actually going to go ahead and move from here. And this is just like, I don't script these videos. I just go off the top of my head. But since we're here, what I'm going to do, how do you properly go back if you're at the range and the range safety officer says, cease fire, condition 4? First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the magazine from any firearm that has a magazine. I'm going to take the round out of the chamber. I'm going to put the slide forward, and I'm actually going to rack it a couple times just to make sure. My own pet peeve. And then I'm going to pull the trigger and make sure it's completely safe. I'm going to do the same thing here throughout any that have a magazine. Go ahead. Oh, I can't actually do that without a magazine. Go ahead, drop the magazine, get my cat out of here. I swear, everyone wants to be part of the videos, right? And I actually made a mistake on that one if you noticed. If you didn't notice, I'm going to pretend it didn't happen. All right, these you press forward, tilt, and drop the rounds. This one's a little bit more difficult because to properly unload, you have to ease the hammer to the half cock position so that the cylinder can move freely. There we go. And then you're going to line up your push rod and you're going to push each of the rounds out the back. This is why cowboys took so long to reload, man. I love these old cowboy guns, but this is why it took so long. All right, and then you're going to spin the cylinder and make sure that every one of the cylinders is empty, and then you can drop that forward and shut the gate. All right, now I'm in a position where everything is unloaded. It's all unloaded, all condition 4, so I'm going to go ahead and just lock it all open so we know on the table that everything is clear and clean. All right, everything is clear and clean. Now I'm going to get these rounds off the damn table because I felt uncomfortable doing that the entire time. This is why when you're cleaning a firearm, when you're working with firearms, when you are not shooting or it's not your everyday carry gun, don't do what I just did with having all these rounds, all the ammunition laying out. So not safe, not smart, and even for someone like me who has years of experience with firearms, my firearm safety takes over, and I get a little bit overly cautious whenever I have rounds like this, which is why like my inherent response is to clear the table, even though I'm just talking right now and I know the rounds aren't going to jump back into any of the guns. Just force of habit out of safety. And for me, I think this is an important thing. If you get to the point where you're safety conscious enough that you want to keep your guns clear, and having live rounds around them when you're doing something like this makes you a little bit apprehensive, that's a good thing. The more apprehensive you are, the carefuler you are. Now, if you're going to carry every day, I actually suggest carrying in condition 1. What was condition 1? Magazine in the magazine well, round in the chamber. On this Glock, there is no external hammer. There is no external safety. So you would carry with a magazine in the magazine well, round in the chamber, just like this. But you do have your trigger safety and 2 internal safeties on this. If you're carrying something like the P365X Macro, you would have a magazine in the magazine well, round in the chamber, and your safety would be on. And then when you draw, all you have to do is be able to draw, turn the safety off, get on target, and pull the trigger. If you're working with a Glock, you don't have a manual safety, so all you need to do is draw, get on target, and pull the trigger. But if you're carrying, this also ends the debate in my mind about the do you carry with one in the chamber, because we've all seen the P320 go off for no reason and just shoot itself. That doesn't actually happen. From all the stuff that I've watched and analyzed on the 6-hour P320, if you have a holster that is not intended for the P320, or, I mean, there's even one where a police officer was reholstering, but if you slow down and zoom in, what you'll find is, actually it would be better on this one, because the 320 is a striker fired. As he was holstering, his finger was on the trigger, so he's putting it in, and then when the when the leather of the holster hit his trigger finger, it pushed it back against the trigger. That's how the accidental discharge with that particular video happened. But everyone out there nowadays, especially with the P320 issue, the 6-hour P320, they're saying, absolutely, don't carry one in the chamber. And everyone online is pointing out how in the manuals for the firearms, the manuals themselves say don't carry with a round in the chamber. And there's a lot of people in the gun community that are like, oh, they're admitting that their guns go off for no reason. No. They create those user manuals with safety in mind, and they have legal liability, okay? They're trying to prevent legal liability. If they didn't have in their manual a explicit note or direction or, safety concern where they said, do not carry with a round in chamber, any of those accidental discharges that happen, they would be legally liable for. So they're trying to cover their own rear ends by putting that in. And if you look at almost every single owner's guide out there for a firearm, even my Glock, which people carry Glock all the time. This is Glock 19. I know so many people that carry the Glock 19 every day with a round in the chamber. Even the owner's manual for the Glock 19 says do not carry with a round in the chamber. It's a cover your rear end where they can escape legal liability for people doing stupid stuff. Now, I know I went on kind of a rant there, but like I said, I don't script these videos. I just go kind of train of thought and what's on my mind. Now you guys are looking, thinking, what the hell's inside of his head? But the whole point of this is it is safe to carry with a magazine in the magazine well and a round in the chamber, as long as you do it properly. And that's actually how I would suggest carrying your firearm. I would not carry with a magazine in without a round loaded in the chamber, so that you have to draw, rack the slide, get on target, and then fire. If you're at the point where you need a firearm to protect or defend yourself, you might not have time to rack the slide and put a round in the chamber. So it comes down to something simple like that. But that's one thing I do love about the 365X macro is, well, the California legal P365X macro. It has the manual safety. So you can literally carry this with a magazine in the magazine well, round in the chamber, ready to go. And when you're drawing, your thumb simply hits the safety, and then you get your proper grip as you're coming up. It shouldn't be that difficult, right? So I actually love the fact that this one has such a nice, sleek safety on it that seems very easy to use and user-friendly. Although I am noticing that this one sticks out a little bit further on this side than it does this side. I never noticed that before. Oh well, sorry, didn't mean to derail the video again. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for sticking around. I hope you learned something. Conditions of a firearm, properly clearing a firearm, and why you should carry with a round in the chamber. Anyway, have a great day and buy guns, not drugs.